Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning the world outside into a watercolor painting of grays and blues. Elena stood at the kitchen window, watching droplets race down the glass, while thunder rolled across the sky like a distant conversation between old friends. She had always loved storms, but tonight felt different. Tonight, the weather seemed to mirror the restlessness that had been growing in her heart for months. Behind her, the grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9 times. David should have been home by now. Her husband's business trips had become more frequent lately, stretching from days into weeks, leaving Elena alone in their beautiful but increasingly empty house. She had grown accustomed to the silence, but tonight even the storm couldn't fill the void that seemed to expand with each passing hour. The doorbell rang, cutting through the sound of rain like a knife through silk. Elena's heart skipped. Perhaps David had forgotten his keys again. But when she opened the door, it wasn't her husband's familiar smile that greeted her. Instead, she found herself face to face with Marcus, David's best friend since college, standing on her doorstep with rain dripping from his dark hair and something urgent burning in his eyes. "Marcus," Elena's voice carried a note of surprise mixed with concern. "What are you doing here? Is everything all right?" He stood there for a moment, seeming to struggle with words that wouldn't come. His usually confident demeanor had cracked, revealing something raw and vulnerable underneath. "I need to talk to you, Elena. It's about David." The way he said her husband's name sent a chill down her spine that had nothing to do with the storm. She stepped aside, allowing him into the warmth of her home, but the comfort she usually felt within these walls seemed to evaporate as Marcus crossed the threshold. "Let me get you a towel," she said, moving toward the linen closet to give herself a moment to think. Marcus had been a constant presence in their lives for the past 8 years of marriage, but he rarely visited when David wasn't home. Tonight, everything about his presence felt charged with an energy that made her pulse quicken. When she returned, Marcus was standing in the living room, staring at the framed photos on the mantelpiece. His shoulders were tense, and Elena noticed the way his hands trembled slightly as he reached for the towel she offered. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely audible above the storm. "Elena, I don't know how to say this." She settled into the armchair across from the sofa where he had taken a seat, maintaining a careful distance while her mind raced through possibilities. "Is David hurt? Has something happened?" Marcus looked up at her then, and Elena was startled by the pain she saw in his dark eyes. "He's fine, physically, anyway." He paused, running the towel through his hair with agitated movements. "But I can't keep this secret anymore. It's eating me alive." The room fell silent except for the rain drumming against the windows and the distant rumble of thunder. Elena felt her heart begin to race, though she couldn't name the emotion that was building in her chest. Fear, anticipation, something else entirely. What secret, Marcus? He set the towel aside and leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "David isn't on a business trip. He hasn't been on half the trips he's told you about." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She had suspected deep down that something wasn't right. The late-night phone calls that ended abruptly when she entered the room, the way David's eyes had begun to avoid hers during conversations, the growing distance between them that felt like an ocean, expanding with each passing day. "Where is he?" she asked, her voice steady despite the way her world seemed to tilt on its axis. Marcus's jaw tightened. "He's been staying at a condo downtown with her." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. The storm outside seemed to intensify, as if nature itself was responding to the revelation that was unfolding in her living room. Rebecca. She works at his firm, they've been. Marcus couldn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The truth hung in the air between them like a heavy curtain, separating Elena's life into before and after this moment. She stood up abruptly, moving to the window where she had been standing when he arrived. The rain blurred her view of the street, much like the tears that were now blurring her vision. "How long have you known?" "3 months." His voice was thick with guilt. "Elena, I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner, but David is my best friend, and I kept hoping he would come to his senses and end it." Elena pressed her forehead against the cool glass. 3 months, 3 months of living a lie, of kissing her husband good-bye while he went to another woman's arms. 3 months of wondering why she felt so alone even when he was home, why his touch felt different, why the love she had once felt radiating from him seemed to have dimmed to barely glowing embers. "Why are you telling me now?" she asked, not turning around. She wasn't sure she could face him yet, not when she felt so exposed and vulnerable. She heard him stand up, heard his footsteps as he moved closer to the window. "Because I can't watch you live this lie anymore, love. It can flourish in its most form, because you deserve better than this, Elena. You deserve so much better." There was something in his tone that made her turn around. Marcus was standing just a few feet away, and the look in his eyes was one she had never seen before, or perhaps she had seen it, but had never allowed herself to acknowledge what it meant. "Marcus," she began, but he held up a hand to stop her. "I know what you're thinking. I know this complicates everything, but I need you to know that my feelings for you have nothing to do with why I'm telling you this." He took a step closer, and Elena could see the rain still glistening in his hair, could smell the storm on his clothes. "I'm telling you because David is destroying something beautiful, and I can't stand by and watch it happen anymore." Elena's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I've been in love with you since the day David brought you home to meet me 8 years ago." The words came out in a rush, as if he had been holding them back for so long that they couldn't be contained anymore. "I'm saying that I've watched you light up every room you enter, watched you love my best friend with everything you have, and I've never said a word because I thought he deserved you and I didn't." Elena felt her knees weaken. She reached out to steady herself against the window frame, her mind reeling from the double revelation. Her husband was cheating on her, and his best friend was in love with her. The storm outside had nothing on the chaos that was now raging in her heart. "But now I know he doesn't deserve you," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. "And I can't keep pretending that watching you waste your love on someone who doesn't appreciate it isn't killing me." Marcus stopped. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm married to a man who's sleeping with another woman," he said gently. "Elena, when was the last time David looked at you the way you deserve to be looked at? When was the last time he made you feel like you were the most important person in his world?" The questions hit her like physical blows because she knew the answers. It had been months since David had really seen her, really listened to her, really been present in their marriage. She had been so busy trying to hold their relationship together that she hadn't stopped to consider whether it was worth saving. "This is crazy," she said, wrapping her arms around herself. "I can't process all of this." Marcus moved closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "I know it's a lot. I know the timing is terrible, but Elena, I couldn't let another day pass without you knowing the truth, all of it." She looked up at him then, really looked at him. Marcus had always been handsome in a quiet, understated way that was so different from David's more obvious charm. Where David was all sharp angles and confident gestures, Marcus was softer, more thoughtful. His eyes held depths that she had never allowed herself to explore, and his smile had always been reserved for her in a way that she had told herself was just friendship. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't have to say anything right now," he replied, his voice gentle. "I just needed you to know. I needed you to understand that what David is doing to you isn't about you. It's about him and his inability to recognize what he has." Elena felt tears starting to fall, and she didn't try to stop them. I feel so stupid. I knew something was wrong, but I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. You're not stupid, Marcus said firmly. You're trusting, you're loyal, you're everything a person should be in a marriage. But it wasn't enough, she said, her voice breaking. No, Marcus said, stepping closer until he was just inches away from her. It was more than enough. It was everything. David is the one who couldn't see it. Elena looked up at him, and for a moment the storm outside seemed to quiet. In his eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in her husband's gaze for months. She saw herself reflected back as someone worthy of love, someone precious, someone who mattered. Marcus, she began, but the words died in her throat as the front door suddenly opened. Elena, I'm home. David's voice carried from the hallway, cheerful and casual, as if he hadn't just been living a double life for months. Elena and Marcus sprang apart, both of them turning toward the sound of David's footsteps. Elena's heart was racing for entirely different reasons now: the fear of being caught, the guilt of what she had been feeling, the anger at the man who was now calling her name as if nothing had changed in here. She called back, her voice surprisingly steady. David appeared in the doorway, his hair wet from the rain and a smile on his face that Elena now recognized as practiced rather than genuine. His expression changed when he saw Marcus. Marcus, what are you doing here? David's tone was casual, but Elena noticed the way his body tensed, the way his eyes darted between them. I came to check on Elena, Marcus replied, his voice carefully neutral. With the storm and you being out of town, I thought she might need some company. David's smile didn't reach his eyes. That's thoughtful of you, but I'm home now, so everything's fine. Elena watched this exchange with new eyes, seeing the way David's presence seemed to diminish the warmth in the room, the way Marcus's honesty stood in stark contrast to her husband's casual deception. Actually, she said, surprising herself with her boldness, Marcus was just telling me about his concerns regarding your recent business trips. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. David's smile faltered, and Marcus's eyes widened slightly at Elena's directness. My business trips. David's voice was carefully controlled. Yes, Elena continued, drawing strength from somewhere deep inside herself. It seems there's been some confusion about where you've been spending your time. David looked between them, and Elena could see the moment he realized that his carefully constructed world was beginning to crumble. I don't know what Marcus has been telling you, but he's been telling me the truth, Elena interrupted. Something I realize I haven't been getting from you for quite some time. The silence that followed was broken only by the rain against the windows and the distant rumble of thunder. David's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, anger, guilt, and finally, resignation. Elena, he began, but she held up a hand to stop him. Don't, she said quietly, don't insult me by trying to explain it away. I think I've heard enough lies for one night. Marcus stepped forward. I should go. This is between you two now. No, Elena said, turning to look at him. You've been honest with me tonight. That's more than I can say for some people. David's face flushed red. So what? Now you're going to take his word over mine, Elena. He's been in love with you for years. Of course he's going to try to break us up. He didn't have to try very hard. Elena replied, her voice growing stronger. You did most of the work yourself. The truth of her words seemed to hit David like a physical blow. He sank into the nearest chair, his face in his hands. Elena, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, she said. And you made the choice to let it continue. You made the choice to lie to me every single day. Marcus had been watching this exchange with a mixture of pain and concern. I should leave you two to talk. No, Elena said again, more firmly this time. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. He nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. When you said you've been in love with me for 8 years, did you mean it? David's head snapped up. Elena, what are you doing? She ignored her husband, focusing entirely on Marcus. Did you mean it? Marcus took a deep breath. Every word. And when you said I deserve better, did you mean that too? Yes, he said without hesitation. You deserve someone who sees you, who appreciates you, who would never take you for granted. Elena felt something shift inside her chest, like a door that had been locked for months suddenly swinging open. Someone like you, Elena, David stood up abruptly. You can't be serious about this. She turned to face her husband, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time in months. Why not? You've been serious about Rebecca for how long now? David's face crumpled. That's different. Elena, I love you. I've always loved you. No, she said, shaking her head. You love the idea of me. You love having me here waiting for you, taking care of everything while you go off and have your adventure, but you don't love me enough to be faithful to me. It was a mistake. David pleaded. I can end it. I can make this right. Elena looked at him for a long moment, then turned back to Marcus. You said you've been watching me waste my love on someone who doesn't appreciate it. Elena, please don't do this, David said, but his voice lacked conviction. What if I stopped wasting it? She asked Marcus, her voice barely above a whisper. What if I gave it to someone who would treasure it? Marcus's eyes were wide with something that looked like hope and fear combined. Elena, are you sure? This is a big decision to make in one night. She took a step toward him. I'm sure that I'm tired of being taken for granted. I'm sure that I deserve to be loved completely, not just when it's convenient, and I'm sure that you've shown me more honesty and respect in one evening than my husband has in months. Elena, think about what you're saying. David said desperately. We have 8 years together. We have a life, a home, a future planned. We had those things, she corrected. You threw them away when you chose to share your bed with someone else. She turned back to Marcus, who was watching her with an expression of such tenderness that it made her heart ache. You said you've been holding back your feelings for 8 years because you thought David deserved me and you didn't. Yes, Marcus said quietly. Well, I think you've got that backwards, Elena said, taking another step closer to him. I think you're the one who deserves better than watching from the sidelines while someone else fails to love me properly. The storm outside seemed to be reaching its peak, with lightning illuminating the room in brilliant flashes and thunder shaking the windows. But Elena felt calmer than she had in months, as if the chaos outside was drawing all the confusion and pain from her heart. Elena, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion, I want you to be sure about this. I want you to choose me because you want to, not because you're angry at David. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the stubble on his jaw, the warmth of his skin. I'm choosing you because for the first time in months, someone has made me feel like I matter. I'm choosing you because you've shown me what real love looks like. It's honest, it's patient, it's willing to put the other person's happiness before its own. Elena, please. David said one more time, but the fight had gone out of his voice. She turned to look at her husband, and for a moment she felt a pang of sadness for what they had lost. David, I loved you with everything I had, but you chose to look for something else instead of appreciating what was right in front of you. I can't live that way anymore. David nodded slowly, his face etched with regret. I know I've lost the best thing that ever happened to me. Yes, Elena said simply. You have. She turned back to Marcus, who was still standing there as if he couldn't quite believe what was happening. Marcus, I need to ask you one more thing. Anything, he said. When this storm passes, will you still be here? Will you still want this when the drama is over and it's just us, figuring out how to build something real together? Marcus stepped closer, so close that she could feel his breath on her face. Elena, I've been waiting for you for 8 years. I'm not going anywhere. Even though it's complicated, even though people will talk, even though we'll have to figure out how to untangle my life from David's, especially because of all that. Marcus said, his voice strong and sure. Real love isn't afraid of complications, it faces them together. Elena felt tears streaming down her face, but for the first time in months, they were tears of relief rather than sadness. Then yes, she said, yes, I choose you. I choose someone who sees me, who values me, who has been willing to wait for me even when it seemed impossible. Marcus cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. Elena, I promise you that I will spend every day proving that you made the right choice. I know I did, she said, leaning into his touch. I can feel it in my heart. Behind them, David stood up slowly. I should go, he said quietly. I should let you too. I should go. Elena turned to look at him one more time. David, I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope Rebecca makes you happy, but I can't be the one who's always waiting for you to decide that what you have at home is enough. David nodded, his eyes filled with unshed tears. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry for everything. I know you are, she said. But sorry isn't enough anymore. David gathered his things quietly and left, the sound of the front door closing behind him seeming to echo through the house. Elena and Marcus stood in the living room, listening to the storm outside and feeling the weight of what had just happened. So, Marcus said after a long moment, what happens now? Elena looked around the room that had been her home for 8 years, seeing it with new eyes. Now we figure out what our life looks like together. Now we stop wasting time and start building something real. Are you scared? Marcus asked. Terrified, Elena admitted, but also more hopeful than I've been in months. Marcus smiled, and Elena realized that she had been waiting to see that smile directed at her with complete openness and love. I love you, Elena. I've loved you for so long that I can't remember what it felt like before. I love you too, she said, the words feeling strange and wonderful on her tongue. I think I've been falling in love with you for longer than I realized. I just didn't let myself see it. We have time now, Marcus said, pulling her into his arms. We have all the time in the world to figure this out together. Outside, the storm was beginning to pass, the thunder moving further away, and the rain settling into a gentle patter against the windows. Elena had always loved storms, but she had never realized that sometimes they come not to destroy, but to wash away what no longer serves us and make room for something new to grow. As Marcus held her close, Elena felt the last of the loneliness and doubt drain away. The storm had brought her the truth, and the truth had set her free. Now, in the quiet after the chaos, she could finally see clearly. She could see a future filled with real love, honest communication, and someone who would never take her for granted. The night that had started with such restlessness and uncertainty had become the night that changed everything. And as Elena looked up into Marcus's eyes, she knew that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the courage to walk away from what isn't working and choose what is. The storm had passed, but their story was just beginning.